Hey guys, so welcome to part 2 of this sound design tutorial. Now as you can see, I've already got all the sounds preloaded into the session. They haven't been processed. There's been some editing that I've done to them. Obviously I put some fades in, I've chopped up some things and put them in kind of random positions. I tried to do this tutorial one other time and it just didn't work out. Trying to do all these edits on the fly was really kind of time consuming. So I thought it would be easier to load all the sounds into the session and we can kind of process them and talk about them as we need to. So first up, let's just have a look at the clip. Okay, here it is. Okay, so if we break it down to its kind of basic elements, we've got a gun being shot. We've got a bullet flying through the air. The bullet then hits the windshield. Immediately after it hits the skull of a victim, the bullet then travels through the brain of the victim, exits the skull, and then exits the back windshield of the car. So yeah, as I said before, I've already got the sounds preloaded in here. Let's have a listen to what they sound like, just so you know that I'm not kind of cheating you here. Okay, so you can probably already see that there are some sounds that are in their positions. One being the gunshot, another one being the bullet kind of hitting the back windshield. I'm just going to mute all these. And for anybody who doesn't know this shortcut, it's Command M. As you can see, they all grey out, and none of them play now. So let's start with the gunshot. I'm just going to unmute that. Okay, that's pretty basic. That's a stock standard gunshot. It's already in its position. So we don't really have to talk about that too much. The next aspect is kind of the bullet flying through the air. And here I've got a sample already, and it kind of works as two sounds. It works as the bullet kind of traveling through the air. We want movement kind of thing, and that kind of modulation that's happening with that kind of weird sound is creating that movement through the air. Secondly, is it kind of is a little splash, a little kind of plop in the water. That's just because when the bullet enters the skull is kind of wet, so we want to kind of simulate that. We want to give the viewer that feeling, that kind of wet feeling. So I thought that would be the perfect sound for that. So the next aspect after that is just prior to the bullet hitting the windshield and entering this victim's skull. I want to create some tension. I want the viewer to kind of feel the bullet as it hits the skull. So what I want is a kind of build up, a tension build up. So I kind of thought a little bit about it, and I want something with a slow attack and an instant release. So yeah, so I want to build up. I want to create that tension. Now, if we just look at this gunshot, we can see that kind of works in reverse. That it's an instant attack, and that there's a kind of a slow release there. So if that works in reverse, if we unmute this gunshot here, you see that it just doesn't work where it is. But if we go up to Audio Suite and we reverse that sound, you can see now that we've got that kind of slow attack, and then it builds up, and we've got an instant release time there. So if we listen to all these sounds together, you can hear that gunshot on its own has created that build-up. That slow kind of attack time can mimic the bullet traveling through the air. and that kind of adds to the bullet hitting this guy's skull. But I don't think that it's finished just there. I think we can add a kind of different element. We can sweeten this sound a little bit. Now, as we can see up here, I'll just unmute this, is that we have another sound. It's the sound of glass breaking. And if we see that it kind of looks the same, that it's got a kind of a fast attack here and a kind of slower release on the sound. So just by that, if we reverse this sound here, we can see that we've got a little bit more of a slower attack time here, which is and just by the name, if anyone's heard glass in reverse, you're probably going to understand that we're going to be able to mimic that kind of tension build up as well, because glass in reverse doesn't sound kind of like anything. It's not a naturally occurring sound. Let's listen to it on its own. So you can hear that it begins to build up around here, and then it kind of explodes, which is good, which is what we want. We kind of want that aesthetic. So if we listen to all the sounds together, you can hear the bullet traveling through the air. You can hear that kind of tension build up. The viewer is going to be able to feel those sounds, but it's not finished yet. So I've got these two sounds here are splashing sounds. So that I put them in there. They're pretty stock standard sounds. That's to kind of reflect the brain being wet. That when the bullet hits the guy's skull, that it's going to mimic kind of a rock being thrown into water. So yeah, it's all suggestive. It's not kind of, it is what it is. We're kind of suggesting to the audience that that this is what's happening. So let's listen to those together. You can hear the splash adds an extra element to it. It kind of sweetens the whole kind of tonal landscape of the clip. And lastly, at this, we're going to need the sound of the bullet hitting the windshield, which is just pretty much just a mug being smashed. So I've raised the volume a little bit just so it stands out a little bit more. And that's pretty standard. Not too much needs to be spoken about this sound. So let's just have a listen to it all together. Okay. So as we can see that there's a kind of technical and creative aspect going on here. That there's, if we take the time to consider what's actually happening in the clip, and we analyze sounds, we can kind of create a whole kind of new soundscape. Just working with raw sounds. I mean, there's not much that has happened here. It's just pretty much thinking about sound, thinking about what you can do with it, and using that to our advantage, kind of thing. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to come back with another video, and we're going to discuss the bullet kind of traveling through this victim's skull. Hope to see you soon.